so the scenario for this week was belly down, bar arm choke, right? And so we actually worked a little bit on how we got in that position. And you'll see in the bloopers, we actually worked at Annie tackling me, trying to put me in this bar arm choke as we're going down, and it never worked. Because her momentum is carrying her so much forward, the fact that my body started to change levels, she would end up falling off my back. That doesn't mean that will always happen, but it's a high likelihood that that's going to end up being the case. But then we did find an example of which Annie can do almost a clothesline to a hip throw, and she can put me on my stomach, and then from there transition into a bar arm choke from behind, belly down. Now, I wouldn't want to say that the bar arm choke belly down is an attack in and of itself. I think it's a transition to other attacks, right? It could transition into a rear naked choke, at which point she slinks her hooks into my legs, and at which point we have almost a slightly different defense. A defense for it, but it's a little bit different. But this one, it would be, I guess, an intermittent attack that would happen, or a movement that would happen before I even got to that point. So if I can chop the head off the snake before it gets there, then I absolutely will. And so that's what we want to show you today, was getting taken out of the ground, having that choke thrown onto your back, and things that you can do before the choke progresses to something that's a little bit more threatening or a little bit more dangerous, absolutely. And try to exploit the moments that I have to get out of that or use that defense as quickly as possible.
You ever stop and wonder how you got to this position?
Look, guys, there's a slew of ways that my attacker can take me down and start working that choke from behind. And we can't cover them all. And for the most part, they're usually transitional. She's taking me down the ground, and my attacker's taking me down to the ground. And in the melee of the fight, they end up getting in some position for that back control and that rear naked choke, or at least the bar arm choke is what we worked on today. Listen, they could be pounding on your head and see the opportunity for that choke, and they go for it, right? Or maybe their ultimate goal in the beginning was to put that choke on, but they wanted to put you on the ground first. There's a lot of different ways that we ended up here. We just showed one example of it, but more importantly, we want to show what to do when that progression of that attack starts turning into that choke and is no longer strikes or any other defenses that you need to do in the moment.
So now that I've ended up here, the first thing I need to do is deal with the threat that I'm being choked with this bar arm choke. We know from level 1, our bar arm choke defense is making our pluck and tucking our chin. So I'm going to
The next choke that we're going to work on is called a bar arm choke. So this is what happens when someone reaches around your throat and tries to pull back on your neck. Let's do it again from this angle.
So I'm going to tuck my chin to my shoulder to relieve some of that strain that's on my neck from Annie squeezing. Go ahead and squeeze. She can squeeze as hard as she wants, and it's uncomfortable and in fact compressing my head, but it's not as immediate threat as it could be if my chin was out. Now, to further defend against that even more, I'm going to take my near side hand, the hand that I can see that's closer to her hands. I'm going to make a hook with my hand, and I'm going to pluck it all the way down, pulling her arms or using that leverage to pull her hands and arms closer down to my chest to leave even more space for my neck in the moment. Now if she squeezes, she's just squeezing my shoulder. I have no pressure really going down on my neck. So I've dealt with that immediate threat. The only problem now is I need to deal with my position. My position is someone on top of me, holding me down, particularly if this is a bigger person. So keeping this pluck in here, I can use my other hand as a support. I'm going to pop my hips straight to the sky, and I'm going to suck my knees underneath my chest. When I do this, Annie's going to do one of two things. She's either going to hold this choke, at which point her head is going to turn into a kickstand and smack the ground because she has no way to break that fall, or she's going to abandon the choke and put a hand out to stop herself from falling, as you'll see right now. Suck my knees up underneath my chest as I drive my hips up towards the sky. So now, Annie's weight's forward, going over my head. She's abandoned the choke for self-perseverance and protecting her head. So my option now is going out the back door. I'm gonna take this arm that's still underneath my chin, I'm gonna suck it underneath my body. I'm gonna roll my right shoulder to my left knee and dislodge her off my back. If she's got a tight hold on and she decides to keep that choke on, even though she's gonna smack her head, once I suck in my knees, I'll go slow so Annie doesn't smack too hard. And I get to see her, but she's still holding on to that choke. Most of her weight is going towards my head, so I'm gonna slip out the back door. Best way to do this is I'm gonna post up on my feet, and I'm just gonna start shaking her off, coming right out from under between her legs. Now back to my feet, back and finish my fight. All right, look guys, so here's the deal. We did this bar arm choke, belly side down on the ground. And one of the first things we wanted to try to figure out was, were we put in that position or we end up in that position? And we kind of found out that it's hard to put someone in that position. As you guys saw, Annie's running up, she's jumping on my back, she's trying to put this bar arm choke on me, using momentum and inertia to her favor, and put me down on the ground on my belly. And we found that she just kept kind of rolling off without the use or the wherewithal to wrap her legs around me. Usually the momentum would carry her right off. But we did find that there's ways for her to put me in position where we ended up in that bar arm choke, belly side down. And so once we got there, we had to start working on some of our level 1 techniques. The choke, a bar arm choke plucking technique to protect that airway in the throat, tucking that chin, right? And because she didn't have her hooks in my legs, by changing my level up and getting her top heavy or high centered, she would roll over the top of my head and I was able to escape out through the back door. That won't always work, but in the moment it worked fairly well. If she starts getting her hooks into me now, then I'm gonna have to start resorting to a little bit more cerebral kind of techniques as opposed to just kind of blunt force and bucking her off. I'm gonna have to roll to my back, I'm gonna have to start hand fighting, controlling that airway and that choke, start working on these hooks that are around my legs, bucking my hips up to the sky, bridging back, putting my shoulder into her throat and her chest to take away a lot of the leverage of that choke and start working my way out of it. Doesn't mean it's over, it just means I have to change up my tactics a little bit. But we found, at least in the moment, in the split second where the choke comes on, she's laying on top of my back, that a lot of times of just defending against the threat and starting to change a level change will end up removing the threat or the attacker off your back. And then I can continue on with the fight. Go for it.
Hey, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like it, subscribe it, and comment.